Hi, this is Matt from Muse, and you're watching Behind the Tracks. I'm going to go through 5 iconic Muse tracks. Plug-in Baby was one of the earlier songs we had, probably from as early as 97 or something, when the band was not even signed or anything. It was just kind of, even though it didn't come out until our second album, it predates our first album. When it came to making a second album, we just kept coming back to it because we loved how the chorus sounded and we loved how kind of melodic it was and everything. And we knew that it needed something else to really take it to the next level. And I started playing the chords over and over again, and I was just like trying to find patterns, guitar patterns that went over the top of it, and I eventually found this kind of riff, this kind of like, it's just a scale, going up and down a scale, but I found the way that it looped around with the chords was really like, it became a riff essentially. And I never thought that guitar riff would be the lead of the track, if you know what I mean. It was like something that came in halfway through, and then eventually we sort of felt, this is just so cool, I've got to start the track with that. Just after the second chorus, I sing really high falsetto. I used to do this thing on the early albums. I still do it a little bit now, where I sing through kind of distortion sounds, like almost so it makes my voice sound a bit like a guitar lead solo. And so I'm singing way up there in the high register. I think I hit an F sharp falsetto note, which is really high. It's a pretty difficult part to sing, especially whilst playing the riff at the same time. Supermassive Blackhole. First thoughts, kind of fuzzy wuzziness. I'm not sure where that's coming from. Vocoders as well, using a lot of vocoders in the chorus. For us, kind of like really trying to make a kind of modern sounding at that time, trying to find like almost like where is rock going, where can it go, that it hasn't been before. And actually Prince, I would say, was a big influence on that. So, I've always been a bit of a Prince fan, and that was the first song where we really sort of tried to embrace his style of singing and kind of more bluesy, almost funk elements. I've always done a lot of falsetto singing, a lot of high-pitched singing, and it was usually kind of in the rock sense, like big screams and stuff like that. But I sort of thought to myself, what would happen if I tried to pull it back a little bit? And that's what I mean about the Prince kind of reference, because he sings in this kind of falsetto voice that's kind of very sort of laid back and funky and cool. I mean, he obviously does the rock scream as well. So I kind of thought, like, what would happen if I tried that register, for my voice? It was unusual for us to do something like that. And then I started doing this kind of like, it's not really like it's not like a death metal thing, but it's kind of whispering aggressively into a really distorted microphone. It kind of sounds really intense and kind of threatening sounding and kind of creepy. Supermassive Blackhole. I think that might have been the first song that I did that on. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that song's interesting because it has maybe the most pop vocal I've ever done at that time, combined with like this first emergence of kind of like almost like a death metal kind of whispery horror type vocal. Yeah, so Mad is interesting connections because, again, another bit of a Prince influence, I'd say. Elements of funk is not really something that's in Muse music at all, but with this one, there's definitely a bit of a syncopated groove, definitely way softer, way more minimal than anything Muse has done before, apart from the ending where it kind of opens up quite a bit. First half of the song is one of the most minimal tracks we've ever done, and also very electronic. In my mind, it was like I had the rhythm like I was maybe doing it with a W initially, like womp 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 womp. I knew that's what the kind of rhythm that I wanted to have, and at some point I just added an M in there. I was like just trying to describe the sound, and that actually became how I discovered the word madness, if you know what I mean. It was going madness, but essentially it was the rhythm combined with the vowel sound and then I didn't want to go down the mama route, okay? So I ended up going madness, and then actually so that entirely formed the song, and I started thinking about what kind of madness, what am I singing about here, and everything just really came from that little loop. We did 6 albums up until that point, and we kind of felt like with Resistance we'd really kind of explored the kind of prog rock and the sort of rock sounds, the riffs and all that stuff. We kind of felt like we'd done a lot of that, and we wanted to sort of really just reach out and just see what else was out there. So it's a pretty weird album. I mean, there's like clarinet solos on that album, there's like dubstep mixed with classical music on that album, so there's all sorts of stuff we tried, and Madness was one of many experiments that we tried on that album, and it just turned out that one we really sort of connected. Psycho, yeah. First thoughts was it's probably one of the oldest riffs that we have, yeah. So the main riff of that song, again, predates maybe even, I want to say, potentially our first album, potentially, or around about our second album. We were on tour and it just became a riff that we'd play in our live shows just to kind of add a little something to the end of a song. Like we might finish like Stockholm Syndrome, or we might finish Newborn, and we'd play like the riff from Psycho. It was never a song, it was just a riff in its own right. And then when we came to make the album Drones, we wanted to return a little bit to the rock sound after the sort of experiments on the Second Law, and that riff was just kind of something we thought maybe we should give this a shot, try and turn it into a song for the first time.
Are you a human drone? Are you a killer machine?
Big Stanley Kubrick fan, yeah, and so Full Metal Jacket. I wanted to use samples from the film, but as you know, with film samples, it's always risky territory. So we kind of recreated some of the stuff, and I went on YouTube and did a lot of research about how the Marines are trained and stuff like that. I'm not a military person myself, but I do have military in my family. My cousin is a colonel in the army, and my uncle was in the army, and so on. And both my granddads were in both world wars and so on. So I've always had this interest in what how, because my personality is like I could never be told what to do or be trained like that, So I'm always intrigued by how could these people that are actually my family members, how could they be like so sort of like into it like that, So like, I've got a huge respect for military, obviously, because it's in my family, but I kind of wanted to do a song that really was kind of tapping into that kind of crazy drill sergeant mentality of like training people to be kind of like absolute killers and stuff. Your ass belongs to me. I think it actually is a line from Full Metal Jacket, I think. Yeah, I think it might be, yeah. So yeah, finding a way to sing that out in a melodic way in the chorus is kind of, it's almost borderline comedy, I think Muse, we often deliberately try and tread this line between what would be sincerity and irony, or like something serious and something kind of silly. We always try and combine these kind of opposites together, so people don't quite know if it's like, is this like, is Nice Side End, is that like a parody, or is that like, are they actually really serious, saying like, we're going to invade Mars or whatever. So I like finding this kind of middle ground between what is kind of serious and not serious, and that line for me like really touches that nerve for me. Won't Stand Down, yeah. So on our latest album, Will of the People, we've kind of dabbled with Won't Stand Down especially, and also a song called Kill or Be Killed. We've kind of really tried to embrace metal a little bit on this new album, and we've always dabbled with hard rock in the past, but we've never really gone down the road of like full-on metal, so like tuning way down to a B, similar range to bands like Korn, Slipknot and stuff, and actually playing riffs in that really low register, So that was really fun to make, and I think it was influenced by, in the late 90s, there's a lot of bands like Slipknot, Korn, all that kind of stuff that were really big at that time, and we went on a very different path as an alt rock band, but I kind of feel like it was a little Won't Stand Down is a bit of a flashback to some of that early stuff that we grew up around. The bass side of it was quite influenced by a song called Calm Like a Bomb by Rage Against the Machine, and it's kind of like the bass player for Rage really does this really cool wiring thing, like wow wow, like that kind of stuff, like using wiring on a distorted bass, and so that's really where that riff came from, kind of like this distorted bass thing. So it did come from Chris playing it, then we layered it with synths as well to kind of give it, one thing Muse always does is we play songs like a traditional rock band, but then we layer it up with synths. So a lot of the guitar parts and bass parts are sometimes layered with synths behind them to give them a slightly more modern sound and tone. Won't Stand Down is probably, I think it might be the first time we did what would be a traditional metal. Do you call it a breakdown? Is that what you call it? Yeah, breakdown, yeah. So, middle eight is what most songwriters will call the section that you have. After the second chorus, you'll do like a solo or a middle eight breakdown where things go soft. But in metal, it's usually a chance to do some new kind of crazy riff and take it to another level of like heaviness. So that's the first time we really tried that with Won't Stand Down. Where it came from was really hearing Dom in the studio kind of for the first time really practicing double bass drum work, So we've never really been a band that do a lot of double bass drum work, and that's a real sort of signature of what makes metal music sound the way it does. So he was jamming and playing these like fast tempo double bass drum patterns, and I was like, we've got to get that in the song somehow. Hey, this is Matt from Muse, and you just watched Behind the Tracks. We've got a new album called Will of the People coming out on August 26th, and we're very excited to tour the United States. We're booking our biggest American tour ever, starting in, I think it's February, March, April next year. We haven't totally locked it down yet, but we're going to be announcing very soon. We're very excited to hit the road in the US.